Since I first began researching the phenomena of cryptozoology, paranormal, and generally just felt of the unexplained, I've always been fascinated by these reports of these large, sometimes upright, humanoid canines, which seem to have been reported from almost every continent, with every country and every culture seemingly having its own take on these dog-headed humanoids.
My name is Mick McLaren, and I'm the founder of the Winterhill investigation team. So around Winterhill itself, there's been quite a few Dogman reports. There was an early morning sighting where somebody saw what they thought was a Dogman, but it was on all fours. A really strange looking, like he saw it from behind, so he saw this like almost a terrier, a bulldog, type of creature running along over a wall across this field. Around the same time, there was a sighting on the other side of where this had happened. There's a reservoir that splits between where this happened and it happened on the other side of the reservoir, where a paranormal group had gone to that area, and they came across, thinking it was somebody walking behind with a dog, turned around when he heard the breathing and saw this 8 foot tall Dogman type creature, red eyes, following them within the tree line, but getting down on all fours, going from tree to tree as they were following them, and standing up when he got to a tree. More or less, it seemed as though it were guiding, making sure that they were getting away from the area that it seemed to use of its own domain area.
The inspiration to do this documentary first came to play late spring of this year, when myself and a group of investigators witnessed what could only really be described as a modern direwolf while we were on the roads of northeast Yorkshire in the barren countryside on the way to Speeton, which itself is one of these hotspots where we hear these stories of wild cryptids, so it makes sense why we saw it there. However, what we saw, well, we don't know.
So we were travelling from Flamborough itself along a road that were taking us to Speeton, and I think we were going to Speeton, but you go past the road that takes you up to RAF Bempton at that point, and we'd come to an area where the road bent a little, but it went down into a dip. Now at that area we got Danes Dyke, which runs the full of Flamborough Red, and this is on the opposite side where not many people walk. It's mostly the road going through this area, and we got so far, and I was looking out, as I do, as we're travelling, I'm usually looking to my left, because usually I'm the passenger, and I'll look at the gates. You're going along a road and you see the edge, and there's always bits where there's a gate, and I always look in the fields when going past these, no matter where I am, I'm always looking. And at this one point, as we were going past, I saw this great big massive tail that must have been about 2 to 2.5 meters longer, like a great big bushy tail, like a fox's tail, but it was twice the size, well, I'd say 4 times the size of a normal fox's tail, and it was just there, and the back end of something. And I can't explain what this back end were, if I were to, like anyone else, if they're going past it, you can imagine looking at the back end of an horse, and you've got to remember this was in dark as well. So I know Dazzy was driving at the time. His first thought was horse, but we know all that it's not grazing land. You know, there's no horses around that area. There's no cattle at all. It's agricultural land. You know, it's what they farm on. Like I said, there's no animals there. And we saw this, and we sort of like stopped and went back on ourselves, and we got out, didn't we? We got out of the car, and I remember us looking across the field and seeing some deer. And I was thinking at the time, I'm looking around the area where I saw this tail and back end, and thinking, you know, whatever this is, it's on all fours, because it was the back end that we saw, and it must have been really, really tall. For its tail, even though the tail wasn't touching the floor, and it was about 2 to 2.5 meters long, and then you had another half meter off the floor. That's how tall this thing was. My first thoughts, I mean, I'm looking around the area, the ground was quite solid, so we couldn't see any footprints or anything that was left behind. But it's notorious in that area that people are spotted around that area. There's been a lot of Dogman sightings. So when I went back and I was looking through the Google images on wolf tails, because I was thinking this what we saw, I would say, was a Dogman, and that we saw the back end of it as it was going past from wherever it come from, going to where I saw it, going off to wherever. Because when we got out of the car, we got there was no sign of anything. So I'm thinking, you know, like wolf's tail, and it must have been a very large wolf. So I'm thinking, if this thing would have stood up, you're talking about 8 foot tall, the way the size of the tail was. And it was grey. The colour, it was sort of grey, what I saw, with black speckly bits within the tail, and the back end was grey.